rare and balanced view on politics in today's world. Based on facts, born of rationality, common sense, and logic, providing context on today's events. This is American Perspective with Rick Thomas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to American Perspective. I am your host, Rick. Welcome back after the Christmas break. Hey, just so everybody knows, yes, it is a little darker in the studio because Christmas threw me off, and you'll recall my last transmission, my lights, my studio lights were dying because they're battery operated, okay? But anyway, I mean, I could plug them in, but the cords, it's not a permanent studio, all right? So we'll just leave it at that. Anyway, the lights, I forgot to charge. So tonight we're doing it based off of whatever I could kind of throw together, and it looks okay. I think it looks good. It kind of matches with the background. Yeah. So I think it's okay. I think it's okay. You guys tell me. As far as that goes, it's just going to look a little darker. All right. Just a little darker, but that's kind of the way it is. All right. Yes, I know. Nana, bad me. Yeah. Well, you know, I was spending a lot of time with family, which I hope you guys all did. We spent, Christmas Eve with the kiddos and their, significant others, had a nice dinner. Open up gifts and things like that. Had a bunch of fantastic gifts. Mrs. Whiskey cried. Mrs. Whiskey cried on a couple of her gifts, of course, because they were, the heartfelt ones. But anyway, so there you go. And we spent yesterday, Christmas Day, just chilling, which is, that's kind of what we do. But I tried the best that I could to stay off social media. I failed, but I tried. I did. I made it. I made a concerted effort, at least until about 10 a.m. I did wish everybody on social media a Merry Christmas. And yeah, so then I ended up wading into the fray because there were some stupid idiots that were out there. And I got one of them. I'm going to discuss one of the things that were stupid that were running around. Yes, Nana, I did do some of that. I did spend a little bit of time with the imbibing in a little bit of the spirits. And yes, Mark, I did get the pictures that you sent of the Peanuts characters. Those were fantastic. I can't believe you drew them. I got to tell you, I am super impressed with all kinds of artistic artwork, because for me, you guys are lucky if I can draw, a stick-figured hangman without people getting confused in terms of what it is. Pictionary is not my game. All right. Just saying. I can't draw with worth crap. I'm just not necessarily an artistic individual in that sense. So yeah, it just, I got some gifts, or we picked up some gifts or I received, I should say, some gifts that were artistic in nature. And I got to tell you, they're not, yeah, I'm not exactly the most artistic person. I can't think of artistic ways. I can figure out how to build something kind of stuff, but creating things out of nothing and making them look good, that's sometimes questionable. So there you go. If anybody wants to throw me into an art contest, I am definitely not going to win. And I already know that. Okay. So, wow, Nana started early. All right. So there we go. Hopefully everybody got a chance to, give thanks to our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ for coming down to earth in the form of man. That is, of course, what Christmas is all about. as Linus told us. And yeah, so there you go. Fantastic, fantastic Christmas, I think. And now we're just finishing down to the end of the year. And the stupid is apparently going to keep growing from the left the closer we get to Inauguration Day. All right, folks, before we get on to that, though, see, I'm like really, whoops, hold on. Don't want to do that one. I want this one. I am really killing it tonight. I forgot to set up tonight's Pledge of Allegiance, so let's see. Yeah, we'll go to do that one. All right. So tonight's Pledge of Allegiance is going to be led by none other than G. And if you would all mind, please stand, remove your hat if you're wearing one. Place your hand over your heart, and let's follow along with G in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, and thank you, G, for that wonderful rendition of the Pledge of Allegiance. Do me a favor, if you would like to hear your version of the pledge played here on the program, all you need to do is attach it to an email. Well, obviously record yourself performing the pledge in your style, then take that and attach it to an email and send it off to me. Send it off to fans, F-A-N-S, at AmericanPerspective.online. That's fans at AmericanPerspective.online, and I will get you into the rotation. Okay, so let's see. Tonight's sponsor, well, let's go ahead and talk about them. I'm wearing one of their shirts right now. I've got the flag, the United States colors, red, white, and blue on this wonderful cotton men's polo. But it comes from theflagshirt.com. That's theflagshirt.com. And you can head on over to their website. That's their website. Head on over to their website, and you can check out all of their patriotic styles. They've got some great patriotic styles running right now for winter. For some of us, like here in the Pacific Northwest, it hasn't really hit winter yet. We're still kind of hanging in the upper 40s to like low 50s, and it's kind of hanging on. So, yeah, it's just, it's kind of warm. According to the Farmer's Almanac, we're not supposed to get snow until first part of January to end of January are like our two best opportunities. Oh, well. Anyway, you can still grab, winter styles at theflagshirt.com. And if you pick up $75 or more of an order, you can get free shipping on your order. So if you pick up $75 or more of product, you can get free shipping. But I know this is right after Christmas. Even though they have after Christmas sales and things like that, not everybody can afford or want actually to pick up $75 or more on their stuff. So what they do is, what I'm going to do is I'm going to help you out. I'm going to help you out by getting yourself a coupon code. You can get that at flagshirt.americanperspective.online. That's flagshirt.americanperspective.online, and you'll get a coupon code. You can copy that over and paste it into the promo code box at checkout at theflagshirt.com. Get yourself $5 off that order. Go to flagshirt.americanperspective.online, get that coupon code, copy and paste it into the promo box at checkout at theflagshirt.com and get yourself $5 off your order. Go to theflagshirt.com and get yourself patriotized. All right. Here we go. Yay. All right. Well, there were a couple reports that came out. One of them, I kind of mentioned, the whole Matt Gaetz thing, which, by the way, it really is frustrating to me when people are so stupid. okay, that they don't seem to understand. The Department of Justice has already investigated all of this. They declined to do any kind of criminal referrals or any kind of criminal, make a case, bring him up on charges. They decided to do none of that. And the reason why is because the individuals that were in the claiming that this was the case had not only done this to other people, but also were, one of them, I think, was in jail. And the others that were in there, they all said, hey, look, they didn't pay me for sex. He didn't pay me for sex. Yeah, he paid me money, but he didn't pay me for sex. It wasn't a prostitution thing. So, this whole thing about the House report and all that, it's another nothing burger. That literally is all it is. But of course, the leftist morons, sycophantic morons on the social media outlets were all pushing it. They were all pushing it. And it kind of got a little frustrating to me, because every time I was like, unsubstantiated claims like what was going on result in 0 charges, 0 criminal referrals, 0 everything. I mean, it's a nothing burger. It's a big nothing burger. We also had another report that just came out, and this report basically goes toward the fact that our money is being flushed down the drain. Okay? Yeah. Money, our government money, as if you weren't really surprised by this, but our government money is being flushed down the drain. And it's being flushed down the drain not by Congress spending it, not by, specialist programs or anything else, but by the government employees themselves. Yes, the government employees themselves are doing this. You ask, wait a minute, how is that possible? How can the government employees be doing this? Well, it's really pretty simple. I obviously am out of practice here. Let's see if it'll show up. Nope, it won't. Okay. So here we go. How is it that the government employees are doing this? Well, 94% of the time, federal employees don't report to work regularly. I got to tell you, I won't say that I would love to have a federal employee job, but I can tell you this much, that, these people, let's just be honest, they're not, if our government employees, our federal employees are not showing up to work, then how is anything getting done? What kind of, you do realize that things like this, okay, that things like this are encouraging things like Doge? Seriously. 94% of federal employees do not report to work regularly as a blatant disregard of duty. Now, the top person, or the top agency that is having this problem is the Department of Energy. Their approximate utilization at 200 square feet per occupant is 0%. 0%. Can you believe that? The Agency for Global Media. What the hell is that? I don't even know if there's even a constitutional purpose for that place. But they only had a utilization of 2%. U.S. Department of Agriculture, 6%. Department of Veterans Affairs, 7%. Yeah. The EPA only covered 8% of their utilization, folks. And these are government buildings. So where did this report come from? It came from the Public Building Reforms Board. And the report itself found that the vast majority of federal workers don't show up in person regularly, highlighting the poor service delivery and complacency in government offices. The Department of Energy, the Agency of Global Media, the U.S. Department of Agriculture, they all topped the list with abysmal occupancy rates. Why do we even have these buildings? I mean, here's the thing. Okay, I understand that COVID made a huge impact on the way that everybody does work. Okay, a lot of industries and a lot of businesses discovered that they don't necessarily need to have people in the office, which honestly, and again, realistically, this is not necessarily a bad thing. Because if you think about it this way, remote workers, especially remote workers that you can then start pulling from a talent base that is farther away than your corporate office. Okay, if you are able to train your managers to release the reins and allow for remote workers in a remote capacity in different cities, you can ultimately grab some of the best and brightest, okay? Some of the best and brightest across, if you want to keep it just in the United States, across the United States. If you want to take it across the world, take it across the world. So there are benefits to doing things like remote workers. You no longer have to have somebody come in and sit their butt in a freaking cubicle on some floor in some building out somewhere, wherever it is. Okay. But the thing about it is, though, is that if you have people who are in the vicinity of the building, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying remote work is the pinnacle. It works for some people. In fact, we had this discussion because I work remote for my regular job. Obviously, I work remote for all of you. But the thing about it is that remote work isn't for everyone. But if you can get somebody who can handle the remote work and handle the situation, handle the idea that they don't see people on a regular day-to-day basis, interact with people on a regular day-to-day basis, I can tell you from my experience, I don't necessarily miss all of the water cooler talk. I don't miss being interrupted. Okay. I don't miss being interrupted by my coworkers just because they are feeling a little, shall we say, touchy-feely about it. So there are advantages and disadvantages to both kinds of work. All right. But the thing about it is that there are certain jobs that need people, butts in the seats. And the problem that we have here is that there are several places, like office spaces and things like that, that are, it's a piece of money, it's a bit of money to keep those buildings, those brick and mortar buildings up and running. Okay? And so when you have government-owned buildings like this, they are keeping the lights on, they're keeping the heat up, they're keeping the building in terms of its maintenance up. They're still having people go in and do cleaning jobs and stuff like that. And keep in mind, as conditions shift and change, there are some jobs that are going to shift and change with everything. But the fact of the matter is that if our government, if they expect people to sit in the office, which, by the way, Elon Musk is planning on telling everybody, like he did at Tesla, you either come into work or you're done. He's suggested that for the government. So then you get a report like this out and you're just like, you're looking at it and going, talk about a waste of money. I mean, frankly, I don't really care if the government people work from home or work in an office. But the fact of the matter is, if you're going to do that, let's start cutting some of this inefficient money. Let's start cutting down on some of the size of these government buildings. Let's start cutting down on the office space that's involved. Let's start saving some money rather than spending it over and over and over every year. So anyway, some of the federal agencies that had the highest occupancy rate, according to the report here, included the Department of Commerce, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the Office of Personnel Management, each of those with an attendance rate just a little more than 10%. Like we're talking 11%. Anyway. According to Doge, only 1% of federal workers, non-security, actually go to work. The answer is to require 100% of federal workers to show up at the office on January 21st and work from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every workday, is what Amuse says on X. Yeah. Anyway. So obviously Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are going to be focusing on things like that. So they as the report, or as the piece here that came from the Populous Times, by the way, in case I didn't mention it, said that with over 90% of employees not showing up for duty, Musk and Ramaswamy have more than enough room to wiggle. So here's the thing. If they don't show up to the office, okay, fine. If they don't show up for work, that indicates that we are heavily bloated and we don't need all of those people. Yeah. Which, speaking of which, if you recall, there was 1 month, I think it was either October or November, just recently, that 12,000 jobs were created. All of them were created out of government. So where are those people working? What are those people doing? And why did they have to get hired? Anyway, so Ramaswamy pointed out in the piece here, politicians have talked a long time about cutting the size of government, but when they get inside, they go native. If we're ever going to crush the bureaucracy, it's going to happen from the outside. And he is true. Right there. Now, Trump, for his own right, has proposed confronting the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. by reintroducing Schedule F, which would allow him to directly fire federal employees. I don't even understand how do they not allowed to get fired? I mean, somebody has to explain this to me, because I've never really understood this. Of course, then again, I've never really worked outside of my military service. I've never worked in a government job before. I've never worked as a teacher. I've never worked as a university. Well, I can't say I've never worked as a university professor, but definitely not a tenured professor. But the thing about it is, I don't understand how you cannot get fired. What's the big deal? I mean, seriously, what is the big deal about not getting fired? You have a right to ask for a job. You also, your employer should have the right to terminate your employment, regardless. If you're not up to snuff, you get whacked. I know that wasn't much of a whacking sound, but there you go. Anyway, so there's other proposed changes to the federal workforce, including transferring federal agencies from Washington, D.C. elsewhere. Trump has also mentioned designating about 50,000 federal employees as political appointees without job security, allowing him to fire them if they do not align with government policies or slack at their jobs. Well, like he's already pointed out, he's threatened to scrap the Department of Education and transfer learning responsibilities to the states where they were before, folks. I'm sorry I added that in, but that's where it was before Carter created the Department of Education. After Andrew Jackson created the Secretary of Education, that got squashed. Then Carter brought it back. President Carter brought it back as a Department of Education, which I'm going to point out is not a constitutionally mandated responsibility of the federal government. There you go. Anyway, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has also proposed eliminating entire departments at the FDA. I agree. So, yeah. This is part of the reason why everybody in D.C. is freaking right now. They're freaking out because they could possibly lose their cushy, I don't have to show up to work job. Yeah. Well, anyway, another report came out, and this one is no real surprise to anybody who paid attention, and I'm probably going to end up getting whacked on YouTube for this, but whatever. Red State. Oh, I got to show you. Here we go. Red State. New extensive COVID-19 origins cover-up revealed, and the Biden administration was pulling the strings. You know, for the Wall Street Journal, I got to tell you, they've done some seriously good reporting here. This one came out as government officials. This is in Red State talking about the Wall Street Journal's article, because of course the Wall Street Journal's behind a paywall. But anyway, they the chances are, and based on this Wall Street Journal report, and I'm not saying the chances are, that was misnomer. I shouldn't have said that. But anyway, it's long been known, at least through basic intuition, that U.S. government officials went to great lengths to cover up the origins of the COVID-19 virus. Former NIAID Director Anthony Fauci infamously spent years publicly deflecting blame from China. Emails, of course, would later emerge showing Wuhan's Institute of Virology funder Peter Daszak had emailed Fauci to thank him for dismissing the lab leak theory. Okay, so just so everybody understands, COVID-19, just to kind of refresh your memory, COVID-19 was being developed as a gain-of-function research project within the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Wuhan, China was where the first cases in the world were detected there. The Wuhan Institute of Virology was not a, what they call like a level 4 or level 3 or whatever it was, biohazard lab that would have helped contain a contagion like what they were attempting to do. They had, China had, or the Wuhan Institute had asked for money to upgrade all of their internal safety measures in order to help contain this thing right prior to the leak, or what the likely leak. They tried to assign it to some wet market that happened to be close by close by, like, I don't know, a couple 100 miles away. Anyway. So now apparently the Wall Street Journal has got new revelations showing how the Biden-Harris administration was covering up for COVID-19's origins, including spy leaders. Spy leaders? That's right. This came from outside our borders. And so spy leaders went ahead and excluded the FBI at the time, allegedly the only U.S. intel agency that had actually assessed that COVID likely came from the Wuhan lab, in a 2021 briefing of Joe Biden. Now, that's, of course, assuming that Joe Biden was actually sentient, because, as you recall, Wall Street Journal also kicked out a report regarding how early his close insider cabinet members tried to cover up his declining mental state. And that was starting in like April of 2021. For those that don't have memories long enough to remember, he became president in January of 21, just 3 months prior to the first report of him being protected. Anyway, so this report apparently has kicked out, and there's Jerry Dunleavy on X has got screen caps of the report, of the Wall Street Journal report. But apparently And you want to talk about, by the way, you want to talk about the WHO, the WHO being defunded by President Trump. And I'm sorry, I know I'm scrolling up and down on the screen here, but I'm doing this because I'm kind of reading at the same time. But here, State Department official who served as a consultant to the WHO was opposed to the lab leak hypothesis. Now, for those of you that don't understand, the WHO is run by the Chinese CCP. Okay, that's just what they are. All right. So, anyway, the same State Department official thought whose CCP-influenced inquiry should be taken seriously. She was made director of global health security for National Intel Council, who had sway over the COVID origins investigation. How much more? I mean, this is kind of a rhetorical question. How much more corruption are we going to have exposed before Donald Trump even makes it into office? I mean, let's be honest. How much more is there? Anyway, so here is essentially part of the report. It says at the time, the FBI was the only agency that concluded a lab leak was likely, a judgment it had rendered with moderate confidence. But neither Bannon, Bannon is, let me see if I can find who Bannon, not Bannon as in Steve Bannon, but a different Bannon, Bannan, nor any other FBI officials were at the briefing to make their case firsthand to the president. Being the only agency that assessed that a laboratory origin was more likely, and the agency that expressed the highest level of confidence in its analysis of the source of the pandemic, we anticipated the FBI would be asked to attend the briefing. This person, Bannon, recalled on his first on-the-record interview on the subject. I find it surprising that the White House didn't ask. Yeah. It wasn't just the FBI either, according to this piece. Scientists from the National Center of Medical Intelligence also backed the lab leak theory. They even specifically cited evidence that gain-of-function research was taking place in Wuhan, despite that being dismissed as a conspiracy theory by Fauci and others. Now, I don't know if you recall, but I know I talked about it on this program. They took the genome of the COVID-19 virus and they found a specific genetic code that is always used in gain-of-function research. And that specific genetic code has never, even though it's possible it could be found occurring naturally, has never been found occurring naturally. And so the idea was that this obviously came from a lab. In fact, I talked about it on this program. I should probably go back into the archives way back when and see if I can find it. But it was the CGCGC, I think, is the genome that was part of the DNA of the COVID-19. I showed it to you on the program. And I'm not trying to pat my back about this, but this was all exposed way back in the early days of COVID, and nobody wanted to accept it. Apparently, except for the FBI here. So the findings of those scientists were scuttled altogether because the Defense Intelligence Agency had come to a different conclusion and seemed to have no stomach for entertaining the lab leak theory. Now, these intelligence agencies are supposed to work for the United States government. They apparently are not. By the way, these are the same intelligence agencies who 51 of them came out and said that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation, which we all know it wasn't. Now that it actually is real, it exists, and the information contained within it is true and correct. Anyway, part of the Wall Street Journal piece, 3 scientists at the National Center for Medical Intelligence, part of the Pentagon's Defense Intelligence Agency, conducted a scientific study that concluded that COVID-19 was manipulated in a laboratory in a risky research effort. But that analysis was at odds with the assessment of their parent agency, the DIA, and wasn't incorporated in the report presented to Biden. And this is also where things get a little more sketchy, the piece says. While the FBI was pushing to have the lab leak theory taken seriously, the World Health Organization released its report endorsing the national origin theory of COVID-19. Hello, the WHO is in the CCP's pocket. There's a reason why these organizations like the UN, like the WHO, like the I just said UN, they're all in the pocket of these other regimes. They have people on these boards who push for this stuff. The corruption is real about all of this. So anyway, many people rightly dismiss those findings as tainted by overbearing Chinese influence, but Adrienne Keene stepped up to provide a push for the WHO's report to be acceptable as viable evidence of a natural origin. So she, 3 months later, was made director of global health security for the National Intelligence Council. Kind of a coincidence, huh? Yeah. She steps up to promote the China-preferred narrative and suddenly gets a high-level promotion, putting her in charge of organizing the report on the origins of COVID-19. Yeah. So, folks, these people lie to us. They lie to us all the time. They are not serious for the people, individuals. Okay? That's what this is exactly the problem that we have here, and this is exactly why Donald Trump was elected. This is exactly why Donald Trump won, not only keeping the House, but also turned over the Senate, and why Donald Trump should hopefully have a very successful 4 years in office. Well, very successful 2 years in office for sure. But the left isn't done yet, folks. They are not done with trying to get rid of him. And in fact, a already postulated and shot down idea has once again starting to show back up in the mainstream media, as well as the left-wing sycophantic social media. Not that I'm thinking that there's any seriousness to any of this, but apparently there were a couple of opinion contributors, is what they call them, all right? And they are reported to be lawyers. Now, I have yet to find on the left, okay, the right has several competent lawyers. And in fact, there is a competent lawyer who's not even right-wing, who's Jonathan Turley. That's one. We have Mark Levin. That's another. Ben Shapiro has even gone to school and has passed in terms of college law school. But there are several lawyer types that are out there. But then you have on the opposite side, you have Lawrence Tribe, who's a moron. You have Mark Elias, who's a moron. You have, I'm trying to think, there's another guy. No, not Tristan Snell, but there's another guy. Maybe it is Tristan. But anyway, there's another guy who's on X who is also a moron. And these are all lawyers. No, don't forget our own VP, who is a lawyer, who is also a moron. But all of these people, these leftist morons, are all revamping, coming back. Oh, thank you. Dershowitz. Dershowitz is another good lawyer. He at least is honest about what's going on. Even he's not right wing by any stretch of the imagination, but at least he's honest about what he does. But all of these left wing lawyers and of course left wing sycophants are all jumping onto the train of once again using Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to try and stop Trump from taking office. Yes, it's back, folks. The insurrectionist folks are back in the news. This is in The Hill. Not that The Hill is anything other than left-wing propaganda for the most part. But this is in the opinion section. Two people, Evan Davis and David Schulte, okay, are back talking about the Constitution and providing that a oath-breaking insurrectionist is ineligible to be president. And they're saying that this is the plain wording of Section 3 of the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Okay, well, let's take a look at the 14th Amendment all over again. Here is Section 3. Now, I want you to read this. I'm going to actually read the whole thing really quick here, but I want you to listen very carefully on this. It says, and I state, and I quote, "No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial officer of any state to support the Constitution of the United States, shall have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same or given aid or comfort to the enemies thereof. But Congress may, by vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability." Now, folks, here we go. Okay. First of all, does the word president show up anywhere in that paragraph? Does the word vice president show up in that paragraph? Oh, wait, yes, it does. Except it's a elector of president and vice president. So not the president or vice president themselves. Now, they're trying to claim that hold any office, civil or military, under the United States covers the president or vice president. But here's the thing. Why would they not actually specifically list the president or vice president? They already did senators, representatives of Congress. What? Anyway, let's just break this down item by item. One, was there an insurrection? No, there wasn't. And how do we know this? Well, pretty simply, down here in Section 5 of the 14th Amendment, which, by the way, these morons that are still trying to get this applied have just basically said that Section 3 lives by itself in a vacuum, okay? However, that's not the way that our Constitution works, especially when you're looking at an article or an amendment and there's multiple sections. Because down here in Section 5, and let me scroll down so you guys can see it, right here it says, Congress shall have the power to enforce by appropriate legislation the provisions of this article. Okay. Here's the thing. Congress has already put out the appropriate legislation. You want to know what that is? Oh, holy crap. Here it is. 18 U.S. Code 2383, rebellion or insurrection. It states whoever incites, sets on foot, assists, or engaged is in any rebellion or insurrection against the authority of the United States or the laws thereof, or gives aid or comfort thereto, shall be fined under this title, or imprisoned not more than 10 years, or both, and shall be incapable of holding any office under the United States. So here's the thing. Section 5 says that Congress has to enforce via legislation any part of that article. Well, they are enforcing it right here under U.S. Code 18, Title 2383. Well, here's the problem. Not one person, not even Donald Trump, has been charged with 18 U.S. Code 2383. Seems to me like the only way for it to be enforced by legislation and essentially by law is that somebody would have to be charged with this. Somebody would have to be proven through due process that they engaged in an insurrection. or did any of the things that are listed under this U.S. code. Yeah. Nope. Nobody has been charged with this. Nobody's been tried for it. Nobody's been not even Donald Trump has been charged with this. Not one person has been charged with anything regarding rebellion or insurrection. Okay, so right now, based on the 14th Amendment, we have, number one, there was no insurrection. So that's the first reason why he can't get taken out of office. Number two, he was not charged with it based under Section 5 under the 18 USC 2383. There we go. So that's 2 points. Now let's get to point number 3, which is essentially, as I said earlier, point number 3, albeit I'll admit it's a little bit of a stretch based on the wording. However, they don't specifically mention the president or vice president in this 14th Amendment. They don't specifically mention those two offices. And as I pointed out to somebody who was on X, who kind of tried to tell me this, well, here's the thing, okay? There is no office of the president. The president is the executive branch. If you look at the way that the Constitution was written, the executive branch is housed in the president. Let's see. Article 2. Let's see what. Let me make sure let's see. What are we looking at here? Yep, Article 2. The executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States of America. That's the first sentence. The office of the president, or the president himself or herself, is the executive branch. So, yeah, they don't have that listed here. And by the way, most of the time when they talk about the office being like a higher or primary office, they would capitalize the O, whereas here they put it as a lowercase o, as you can see right here, which would indicate a subservient office. These are all arguments that, of course, would have to get clarified in a court of law, but they could be made clearly about this entire thing. Once again, these morons are back. They're back trying to say that Trump incited an insurrection when he didn't incite anything. He wasn't even there at the Capitol. When he did speak to the crowd, he basically stated to peacefully and patriotically protest. He never once said, go and, enter the Capitol building and destroy it. He never once said, we're going to go down to the Capitol and we're going to take back our government. No, he didn't say any of that. He just said peacefully and patriotically protest. They can't get him on this. They are so damn desperate right now. They are at the 11th hour and they are freaking completely out about this entire thing. Oh, I'm sorry. I got corrected. It's peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. Anyway. Not to mention the fact that the insurrection itself probably would have been armed, and not any single person got any type of armament into the cordoned off area. So, yeah. These people, I'm telling you, they are getting desperate. They are desperately trying to find a way around the fact that Donald Trump won. He won decisively. He won the popular vote. He won the electoral vote. And he will be inaugurated president on January 20th. And what's even worse for them and even is the fact that even people within their own party are saying, yeah, you guys screwed up. you guys are in a horrible situation. So apparently, according to PJ Media here, and I'll show you the article here in a minute, there was a heavyweight roundtable hosted by 4 supposedly heavyweight Democrats and reported by the New York Times. The 4 Democrats are Frank Bruni, who's a longtime political analyst for the New York Times, former Democrat Representative Tim Ryan, Anat Shanker Osorio, who is a campaign advisor and the host of the podcast Words to Win By, and the Democrat strategist Liz Smith. Now, the upshot, according to this is in PJ Media, the upshot of the round table was grim. By that, they mean they're coming to grips with the idea that they're in a bit of trouble. Here's a quote from Liz Smith. Many of the Democrats who succeeded this cycle, our best overperformers in House races, for instance, are people who ran against the Democrat Party brand. Trump tore down the blue wall in the industrial Midwest, but he also expanded his vote in the most in our bluest and most urban areas. That strategy by Democrats in, for the most part, purple districts probably saved the party from total disaster. As it was, they actually picked up 1 seat in the House. And the 3 seats the GOP picked up in the Senate could have easily been more if some candidates hadn't run away from Biden and Harris. In other words, if they hadn't stayed on the left and hadn't come back a little more centric, they probably would have had, if they had stayed there with Biden, they would have lost more. So here in Politico, in a trio of focus groups, even voters who previously backed Democrats cast the party as weak and overly focused on diversity and elites, according to research by the progressive group Navigator Research. Yeah. Yep. I continued, when asked to compare the Democratic Party to an animal, one participant compared the party to an ostrich because they've got their heads in the sand and are absolutely committed to their own ideas, even when they're failing. Another likened them to koalas, who are complacent and lazy about getting policy wins that we really need. Democrats, another said, are not a friend of the working class anymore. So, yeah, they're flailing, folks. They're flailing. Yep. So the working class, they said, has become unmoored from the Democrat Party and is entirely up for grabs going forward, which means that the Republicans need to focus on getting this stuff done. They need to focus on this. Which, by the way, Congress, kind of segue from this over to the next story, Congress actually did something that is going to put Social Security further into jeopardy. This passed not too long ago. Let me see. When did this happen? Just recently, rushing home for the holidays. So Congress, which of course has mismanaged Social Security and everything else for quite some time and gotten it into an insolvent situation, which, by the way, part of the reason why it's going insolvent is because our population, and especially our working population, is declining. It cannot sustain itself for the most part because the number of people who are retiring is more than the number of people that are paying into the program at present. See, the way that this Social Security was supposed to work, and keep in mind, it was a temporary benefit program. It was not planned or designed to be a long-term benefit program, all right? But basically, here's the thing, is that Congress keeps thinking that, hey, we can just keep taxing people, especially the Democrats. We can just keep taxing people and figure out how to backfill or borrow money and figure out how to backfill. Social Security, as I showed you the other day, was that Social Security was upwards of like 22% of our actual budget and our spending. I mean, it's the biggest, by the way, the biggest piece of the whole thing. But here's the thing. Congress keeps mismanaging it, and they did it all over again right here, according to Just the News. Congress just pushed Social Security closer to the brink, only to appease the unions. The CBO is estimating that the new law will deplete Social Security Trust Fund by a whopping $20 billion a year. So what happened here is that as they rushed home for the holidays, and by the way, you're not hearing this in the mainstream media as far as I'm aware. I wasn't even aware of it until I hit this piece. But members of Congress approved legislation that will extend additional Social Security benefits to workers whose municipal employers, and this is the key, didn't always pay fully into the fund. You wonder why the damn thing's going insolvent. I mean, seriously. So apparently it was a gift to the labor unions. The last one, I would guess, is the Democrats are going to get passed over or whatever. But here, it came as a hefty price tag for the fast depleting Social Security Trust Fund that lawmakers have failed to fix for decades. The CBO warns that the Social Security Fairness Act, as it was called, will cost $196 billion over the next decade to provide added benefits to some 3 million Americans. This is going to further deplete the trust fund by a whopping $20 billion a year. When the House and Senate approved the legislation in bipartisan fashion, by the way, so this isn't just Democrats and it isn't just Republicans, they skipped the pay-as-you-go legal requirements. That means no new funds are going to be allocated to replenish the extra burden on the fund, though there were some small savings in food stamps. Only a handful of lawmakers raised any concerns about further speeding Social Security's pending sand clock expiration date. Representative Glenn Grothman, who's a Republican from Wisconsin and one of the few to actually raise the concerns, told Just the News during an interview on the John Solomon Reports podcast, this is not a small bill. $20 billion is a huge spending commitment by Uncle Sam. It was very frustrating for me to watch it get out of the House. The House approved the law in November by a vote of 327 to 75, with one member abstaining. It's just shocking, given that we just had a bunch of Republicans win, and this is happening when the Republicans are in charge, Grothman lamented. We just had a bunch of Republicans run on, we have too much inflation because we're spending too much money, and the first thing they do, even before they're sworn in January, is decide to spend another $20 billion. And it's just another throwing gasoline on the fire of inflation, driving Americans into even more debt. One of the, I would say, dark days of the Republican Party. Senator Rand Paul offered an amendment to the bill to help offset the price tag with a few changes, including gradually raising the retirement age to 70. But he was rebuffed, before his Democrat-controlled chamber approved the law. See, again, folks, I'm just telling you this for the fact that the fact is, first of all, nobody wants to touch those social programs because everybody is of the belief that these social programs are something that is needed. And they are needed for some. I'm not going to deny that. But the fact of the matter is something is going to have to happen because no matter what, we're dipping into it. We're tearing into it. We are bleeding money because of these kinds of social programs that aren't even constitutionally mandated responsibilities of the federal government. Something is going to have to change. And it's either going to have to change now when the impact theoretically should be less than down the road when the impact is going to be even worse. And this is part of the reason why Trump was elected, along with the rest of his, the rest of the Congress being in Republican control. Alrighty, folks, that is it for me for this evening. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, head on over to rumble.com, get yourself an account. It is free. And when you are signed up and signed in, search up the American Perspective channel and make sure that you, oh boy, make sure that you hit that green follow button to get notified every time I go live. Sorry, I was on Troll Patrol. I had to smack somebody. Anyway, so also, too, don't forget to hit those thumbs up and, like buttons across the board, whether it's on YouTube, X, Facebook, or the aforementioned Rumble, as that will help elevate these videos across the board for me. We will see you tomorrow night, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern Time, right here on American Perspective. Have a great rest of your evening. We will see you tomorrow, because I know everybody's like chomping at the bit. A lot of people are off, so not streaming, but I'm going to stream. So there you go. We'll see you tomorrow night. Have a great evening, and good night, everybody.
The previous broadcast was produced and is owned by Active Eye Media LLC. All rights reserved.